You lied to me. Danny angrily confronts Naomi about her test results. In a blistering, emotionally volcanic hour of Beyond the Gates, the camera opens on Fairmont Crest wrapped in a deceptive calm, the kind that precedes an earthquake, as Danny storms through the wrought iron gates with fury crackling in her wake, her heels striking the marble foyer like gunshots. Her jaw sets so tight it looks as if one wrong word could shatter her completely, because the truth Naomi tried to hide, has finally clawed its way into the light, and Danny is done being gentle, done being patient, done believing the version of reality Naomi carefully curated with soft smiles and evasive reassurances, because the test results Danny now grips in her trembling hand say everything Naomi swore they wouldn't, and the betrayal burns hotter precisely because it was wrapped in love, because when Danny confronts Naomi in the living room, where sunlight spills across the Dupree heirlooms like a cruel spotlight, the air seems to thicken with all the unspoken moments that led here, all the nights Danny defended Naomi to anyone who dared question her, all the mornings Danny swallowed her own doubts because she trusted Naomi's voice, trusted the way Naomi said, "I would never lie to you." And now Danny's voice breaks through the room like thunder as she throws the papers onto the coffee table and shouts, "You lied to me." A declaration that ricochets off the walls and freezes Naomi mid-step, her face draining of color as she realizes the reckoning she feared has arrived, because Danny isn't asking a question, she isn't seeking an explanation, she is delivering a verdict, and Naomi's instinctive denial, too quick, too rehearsed, only fuels Danny's rage as Danny paces, laughs bitterly, and demands to know how long Naomi thought she could keep this secret buried. How long Naomi planned to let Danny build her future on a foundation of half-truths and omissions, and Naomi, cornered at last, pleads that she was trying to protect Danny, that the results were complicated, that she needed time, but Danny cuts her off with a shaking hand and a voice raw with disbelief, because protection doesn't look like deception, and love doesn't look like gaslighting someone into doubting their own instincts. And the scene crackles as Danny recounts every moment she sensed something was wrong. The missed calls, the late-night appointments Naomi claimed were nothing, the way Naomi flinched whenever Danny mentioned the tests, and now all of it clicks into place with devastating clarity, turning memory into a weapon that Danny wields mercilessly as she demands the truth, the whole truth. No more sugarcoating, no more deflection, because if Naomi expects forgiveness, she's going to have to earn it in blood and honesty, and Naomi finally breaks, tears spilling as she admits that the results were worse than she expected, that she panicked, that she was terrified of what Danny would do if she knew. Terrified of losing Danny, and Danny's fury softens for half a heartbeat, not into forgiveness, but into something more painful, grief, because Danny realizes this isn't just about the results, it's about trust, about autonomy, about being robbed of the right to face her own reality on her own terms, and when Danny asks, quietly now, "Did you ever think about what this would do to me?" the question lands harder than any scream, leaving Naomi sobbing as she confesses that every lie weighed on her, that she told herself she was buying time, that she believed she could fix it before Danny ever had to know, but Danny shakes her head, incredulous, because people don't get to decide someone else's truth, and the confrontation escalates when Danny reveals she didn't hear this from a doctor or a lab but from someone else entirely, someone Naomi never expected would talk. And Naomi's eyes widen with fear as she realizes the secret has ripple effects she can't control, because now others know. And Danny isn't just angry. She's humiliated, exposed, forced to relive the revelation through whispers and pitying glances instead of a moment of private strength, and Danny's voice cracks as she admits how alone she felt reading those results without Naomi by her side, how the silence was louder than any diagnosis, how betrayal compounds fear until it feels unbearable, and Naomi reaches for her only to have Danny step back, wounded pride flashing in her eyes as she declares that she doesn't know who Naomi is anymore, because the woman standing in front of her isn't the partner who promised honesty no matter how ugly the truth, and the argument spirals, touching on old resentments and unresolved wounds, because secrets have a way of dragging everything else into the open, and Danny accuses Naomi of always trying to control outcomes, of always deciding what's best without listening. While Naomi fires back that Danny has a history of self-destruction when faced with bad news, that she was scared Danny would spiral, and Danny explodes at that, because fear doesn't justify betrayal, and if Naomi truly trusted Danny, she would have trusted her resilience too, and the camera lingers on Danny's face as she admits that the worst part isn't even the results themselves, but the realization that Naomi saw Danny as fragile, as someone who needed to be managed rather than respected. And that cut goes deeper than any medical prognosis ever could, and Naomi collapses onto the couch, sobbing that she never meant to hurt Danny, that she loves her, that everything she did was out of love. But Danny responds with a devastating calm, saying that love without honesty is just fear wearing a pretty mask, and the silence that follows is suffocating, broken only by Naomi's ragged breathing, until Danny picks up the test results again, her hands steadier now, and says she will face whatever comes next on her own terms, whether Naomi is part of that journey or not, because right now she can't look at Naomi without seeing the lie, and Naomi begs for another chance, swearing she'll never hide anything again. But Danny reminds her that trust isn't a switch you flip back on. It's something built slowly, and right now the foundation is cracked. And as Danny turns to leave, Naomi calls after her, voice breaking as she asks if this means it's over, and Danny pauses at the door, tears finally spilling as she answers that she doesn't know, that everything feels uncertain now, that the future Naomi tried to protect her from is less frightening than a relationship built on secrets. And with that, Danny walks out, leaving Naomi alone amid the echoes of her own choices, the camera pulling back to reveal the test results still lying on the table like a ticking bomb, because the fallout from this confrontation won't end here. It will ripple through Fairmont Crest, forcing alliances to shift, truths to surface, and characters to choose between control and compassion, as Beyond the Gates proves once again that the most devastating betrayals aren't committed out of malice, but out of fear, and that sometimes the hardest thing isn't facing the truth, but accepting who took that choice away from you. The moment Danny steps out into the courtyard, the afternoon sun feels cruelly bright, as if the world itself refuses to dim its lights for her pain, and she sucks in a breath that trembles all the way down to her bones, because the confrontation with Naomi didn't just rip open a wound, it rearranged her understanding of the last several months, turning every shared laugh, every whispered promise, every late-night reassurance into something suspect, something she now replays in her mind with surgical precision, wondering where the lie began and how deep it ran. And inside the house, Naomi remains frozen, staring at the closed door as though willing it to reopen could undo the damage, because the silence Danny leaves behind is louder than any argument, a roaring absence that fills every corner of the room and presses in on Naomi's chest until she can barely breathe, and the script smartly crosscuts between them. Danny pacing the stone path outside, wiping angry tears from her cheeks, and Naomi collapsing onto the couch, clutching her head in her hands, underscoring that this betrayal has fractured them into parallel worlds that no longer touch, at least not cleanly. And as Danny reaches her car, her phone buzzes with a message she ignores, because right now she can't handle anyone else's concern, anyone else's questions, when she's still trying to reclaim ownership of her own story. The test results burning in her bag like contraband, proof of a truth that was never supposed to reach her this way, and when she finally gets behind the wheel, she doesn't start the engine right away, instead resting her forehead against the steering wheel as a sob escapes her, raw and unfiltered, because anger can only hold grief at bay for so long before it collapses under its own weight. And in that moment, Danny mourns not just what the test results might mean for her future, but the version of her relationship she thought was unbreakable, the faith she placed in Naomi as her safe harbor, a faith that now feels painfully naive. While inside the house, Naomi's own spiral begins, her thoughts racing as she replays the confrontation again and again, wincing at every moment she could have chosen differently, every time she could have told the truth but didn't, convincing herself that tomorrow would be better, that she'd explain everything once she had a plan, once she could offer hope instead of fear, never fully grasping that the lie itself was the true poison. And when Naomi finally lifts her head, Her eyes land on the test results still lying on the table, and she crosses the room slowly, reverently, as though approaching a shrine, picking them up with shaking hands and whispering, "I was trying to save you," even as the words sound hollow in the vast room, because deep down she knows Danny was right. She made a choice for someone else, and no amount of love can justify that. And the episode deepens the tension by allowing the fallout to spread almost immediately, because secrets in Fairmont Crest never stay contained for long, and by the time Danny pulls onto the main road, her phone lights up again, this time with a call she can't ignore, and when she answers, the voice on the other end offers sympathy that lands like salt in an open wound, confirming Danny's worst fear. That people are already talking, that the knowledge Naomi tried to control has slipped through the cracks and is now beyond anyone's grasp, and Danny's grip tightens on the steering wheel as she realizes she's lost more than trust today. She's lost privacy, dignity, and the right to decide who knows what about her body and her future. And back at the house, Naomi receives her own call, this one less gentle, tinged with accusation and disappointment, forcing her to confront the reality that her decision didn't just hurt Danny, it destabilized a delicate web of relationships built on transparency and loyalty, and Naomi's defenses crumble further as she's forced to admit, to herself and to others, that fear drove her actions more than love. Fear of abandonment, fear of helplessness, fear of watching someone she cares about walk into pain she couldn't shield them from, and the writing leans into that uncomfortable truth, refusing to let Naomi hide behind good intentions, while simultaneously refusing to paint her as a villain, because Beyond the Gates understands that the most compelling conflicts arise when everyone believes they are acting out of love, even as they cause irreparable harm, and as night falls, Danny finds herself somewhere unexpected, a place tied to strength rather than comfort, where she can sit with the enormity of what she's learned without being watched or managed, and in a quiet, devastating monologue, she finally allows herself to read the test results again, this time slowly, deliberately, reclaiming the information that was kept from her, her face a study in controlled resolve as she whispers, "This is mine," over and over, as if saying it enough times will make it true, and the episode closes with a powerful visual parallel. Naomi alone in the darkened living room, surrounded by reminders of the life she nearly lost, and Danny standing beneath a streetlight, eyes lifted, jaw set, stepping into an uncertain future with nothing but the truth and her own strength to guide her. Because while the confrontation began with the words, "You lied to me," its true aftermath lies in what comes next, in whether honesty can ever rebuild what fear destroyed, and whether love, stripped of control and secrecy, can survive the reckoning it so desperately tried to avoid. As dawn creeps over Fairmont Crest with a pale, unforgiving light, the weight of the night settles differently on both women, because truth, once exposed, refuses to stay still, and Danny wakes after a restless half-sleep with the echo of her own voice, "You lied to me," still ringing in her ears like a verdict that can't be appealed, and she sits on the edge of the bed staring at the floor as if the answers might be etched into the wood grain, realizing that anger was the adrenaline that got her through the confrontation, but now what's left is a hollow ache that demands to be felt, processed, owned. While miles away, Naomi hasn't slept at all, pacing the living room until the sky lightens, every shadow a reminder of Danny's absence, every creak of the house a ghost of the life she assumed would always be there, and when Naomi finally stops moving, it's because she's reached the brutal understanding that apologies mean nothing without accountability, that love without respect is a cage no matter how soft the lining, and the episode deepens its emotional stakes by allowing both women to sit in that realization without rushing toward reconciliation, because Beyond the Gates knows the power of letting pain breathe, and later that morning Danny receives another message from Naomi, long, careful, unsent 3 times before finally being delivered, not asking for forgiveness, but acknowledging the harm, naming the lie for what it was, and promising nothing except honesty going forward. And Danny reads it once, twice, then sets the phone down without replying, not out of cruelty but out of necessity, because she is learning, painfully, belatedly, that boundaries are not punishments, They are survival, and when Danny steps outside into the morning air, she carries herself differently, shoulders squared, eyes clearer, as if reclaiming her narrative has already begun to shift something fundamental inside her, while Naomi, left alone with the consequences of her choices, begins the slow, humiliating work of telling the truth to others, answering questions she once avoided, accepting judgment without deflection, because the lie didn't just fracture her relationship with Danny, it exposed patterns she can no longer ignore, and in a quiet, devastating scene, Naomi admits aloud that she equated control with care, that she mistook managing outcomes for protecting the people she loves, and that realization lands like a confession she's been avoiding her entire life. And the script smartly weaves this personal reckoning into the broader fabric of Fairmont Crest, where whispers turn into confrontations and sympathy mingles with suspicion, because secrets have gravity here, pulling everyone into their orbit whether they want to be involved or not. And when Danny finally does respond to Naomi's message hours later, the reply is short but seismic: "I need time. Please respect that." A sentence that carries more strength than any shouted accusation, signaling that Danny is no longer reacting, she is choosing, and Naomi reads it with tears streaming down her face, because even in distance there is a strange mercy, a chance to do better rather than demand absolution. And as the episode edges toward its final beat, Danny stands in front of a mirror, studying her reflection not with fear but with resolve, whispering to herself that whatever the test results mean, they will not define her more than the courage it took to face them. And the camera cuts between her steady gaze and Naomi's tear-streaked one, visually underscoring the central truth of this arc, that lies may be told in the name of love, but healing only begins when truth is finally allowed to speak, even if it changes everything, and the promise hanging over beyond the gates is clear. This story is no longer about a hidden diagnosis, it's about whether trust, once broken in the most intimate way, can ever be rebuilt without sacrificing the autonomy and dignity that should have been honored from the start. The days that follow refuse to soften the blow, because in Fairmont Crest time doesn't heal so much as it interrogates, and Danny feels every hour like a question she must answer without Naomi's voice guiding her, which is both terrifying and, in a strange way, liberating, as she begins to notice how often she once deferred, how frequently she let Naomi frame reality, soothe uncertainty, decide when and how hard truths should land. And now that absence becomes a proving ground where Danny tests her own instincts, her own strength, learning that fear doesn't vanish when the truth arrives, but it does become manageable, shapeable, something she can hold instead of something that holds her, while Naomi's reckoning grows heavier with each conversation she's forced to have. Because people aren't just reacting to the lie itself, they're reevaluating every interaction they've ever had with her, wondering what else she curated, what else she decided for them under the banner of love. And Naomi feels that judgment keenly, not as cruelty but as consequence, the price of assuming she knew better than the person she claimed to protect. And in one particularly raw moment, Naomi is confronted with the realization that Danny isn't the first person she's done this to, that this pattern stretches back years, hidden beneath good intentions and carefully worded reassurances, and the shame of that insight sits heavier than any accusation ever could, because it demands change rather than apology, and the script refuses to offer easy absolution, instead letting Naomi sit with the knowledge that love doesn't excuse harm, no matter how pure the motive, while Danny, on her own path, begins to speak her truth out loud, first tentatively, then with growing confidence, sharing the reality of her test results on her own terms, choosing when to be vulnerable and when to be private, reclaiming the narrative Naomi once controlled, and each time she does it chips away at the power the secret once held over her, transforming it from a source of fear into a marker of resilience. And when Danny finally runs into Naomi again, not in a dramatic showdown but in a quiet, almost painfully ordinary moment, the air between them hums with everything left unsaid. And Naomi doesn't rush to explain or justify, she simply listens, really listens for perhaps the first time, absorbing the weight of Danny's experience without trying to redirect it, and Danny notices that difference immediately, the absence of management, the presence of humility, And though it doesn't erase the betrayal, it cracks open a door Dani thought was sealed shut, suggesting that growth, while slow and uncertain, might actually be possible, and the power of the scene lies in its restraint. In the way both women acknowledge that love doesn't guarantee reunion, that accountability doesn't entitle anyone to forgiveness, and that sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting to stay together, but allowing space for people to become better versions of themselves, separately if necessary. And as the episode arc closes, Beyond the Gates makes its thesis unmistakably clear. The lie was never just about the test results. It was about control versus trust, fear versus respect, and the painful truth that loving someone means letting them face their own reality, even when it terrifies you, because anything less isn't protection, it's erasure. And in that realization, both Dani and Naomi stand on opposite sides of a future neither of them expected, forever changed by the moment one truth was hidden and another finally, irrevocably, set free.